The auditorium was alive with celebration, a vibrant tapestry of laughter and chatter filling the air as proud families gathered to witness a momentous occasion. Rows of chairs stood neatly lined up, each filled with faces beaming with pride. Above the stage, a large banner read in bold, glittering letters, "Class of 2025, congratulations, graduates." I clutched a bouquet of lilies and roses tightly in my hands, the delicate petals trembling slightly as I gripped the stems. My heart pounded, not from the noise or the crowd, but from pure, unadulterated pride. My daughter, my baby girl, was about to cross the stage, wearing the cap and gown I had dreamed about for years. My eyes scanned the program, her name highlighted in yellow, as if I needed the extra reminder. Emily Johnson. My Emily. As I waited, my mind wandered back to the journey that had brought us to this moment. I recalled the late nights working overtime at the diner, my feet aching after double shifts. I remembered the nights I skipped dinner so Emily could have an extra helping, telling her I wasn't hungry when my stomach growled. I thought about the times I stayed up sewing her clothes, making them look good as new so she wouldn't feel out of place. The college fund. I remembered every penny saved, every birthday without gifts, every vacation that never happened. Also, I could squirrel away just enough to give her a shot at her dreams. I had worked so hard to ensure she never felt the weight of our struggles. I could still hear the words I whispered to myself late at night when the exhaustion felt unbearable. "It's worth it. She's worth it." The principal stepped up to the podium, her voice booming with pride as she welcomed the families and congratulated the graduates. The applause was deafening, but all I could hear was the rapid thudding of my heartbeat. I leaned forward in my seat, my hands gripping, the bouquet like a lifeline. One by one, students began walking across the stage, shaking hands and accepting their diplomas. Each name called was met with cheers, claps, and even the occasional whistle. My eyes darted back to Emily, still seated in the front row, her cap slightly tilted to the side. She looked so grown up, so confident. And finally, it happened. "Emily Johnson!" The sound of her name was like a bell ringing in my chest. I shot up from my seat, clapping as hard as I could, ignoring the curious glances from the families around me. My little girl walked across the stage with grace and poise, her smile so bright it could have lit up the entire auditorium. After the diplomas were handed out, the principal announced that a few students had prepared short speeches. To my surprise, Emily stepped up to the podium, holding a neatly folded piece of paper in her hands. My heart swelled with pride. "She's going to thank me. She's going to tell everyone about the sacrifices we made together." She began speaking, her voice clear and steady. "I want to thank my teachers for their endless guidance and support," she started, pausing to make eye contact with the faculty seated in the front row. The crowd clapped politely. "I want to thank my friends who have been there through every late-night study session and group project." The applause grew louder as her friends whooped and cheered from the audience. "And of course, I want to thank my aunt and uncle, who have always believed in me and encouraged me to follow my dreams." Her voice cracked slightly as she looked toward them, tears brimming in her eyes. The crowd erupted into applause, her aunt and uncle standing to wave proudly at her, but that was it. Her speech was over. She folded the paper, stepped back from the podium, and joined the line of graduates waiting to toss their caps. I sat frozen in my seat, the applause around me fading into a dull roar. My hands still clutched the bouquet, the stems now slightly bent under the pressure of my grip. My forced smile felt like a mask, cracking at the edges. She hadn't mentioned me. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she forgot. Maybe she was too nervous. But deep down, I knew I had seen her glance in my direction, her eyes quickly darting away, as if she couldn't bear to look at me. The bouquet trembled in my hands as the weight of her omission pressed down on my chest like a heavy stone. Memories of all the sacrifices I'd made flooded my mind, each one now tinged with the bitter sting of being overlooked. The ceremony ended, and the graduates began tossing their caps into the air, their laughter echoing through the auditorium. Emily was surrounded by her friends and family, taking photos and hugging everyone in sight, everyone except me. I stood up slowly, clutching the bouquet to my chest, and made my way to the exit, slipping out quietly before anyone noticed. The late afternoon sun warmed my skin, but it couldn't ease the chill in my heart. I walked to the parking lot as the sound of celebrations faded behind me, glancing at the bouquet in my hands. For a moment I considered leaving it on her car, an unspoken gesture of love, but instead I held it tighter and kept walking. As I reached my car, I whispered, "Maybe she'll see me next time," though deep down, I wasn't sure there would be a next time. The ceremony moved on to family photos, with proud families lining up near the stage. I stood off to the side, watching Emily pose with friends, her arm around a classmate, their smiles radiant. Clutching the bouquet, I told myself I'd have my moment, but her aunt and uncle approached, hugging her as she beamed, laughing when they handed her a small, blue box. I hesitated, thinking this was my chance, but more people swarmed around her. Family friends, neighbors, teachers. She greeted them all with hugs and smiles, her attention absorbed, leaving me standing unnoticed. Eventually, someone gestured for me to join the family photo. I hurried into the frame, awkwardly positioning myself at the edge. Emily didn't even glance at me. She smiled brightly for the camera with her arm around her aunt, while I stood clutching the bouquet like an afterthought. The photographer clicked, and the group dispersed, leaving me alone again. At the reception, lively chatter filled the school courtyard. I sat at a corner table watching Emily weave through the crowd. She was glowing, the center of attention, surrounded by friends and family. I told myself I'd find the right moment to tell her how proud I was. But then I overheard a snippet of conversation that made my chest tighten. "I don't know how you do it, Emily," a friend said. "Balancing everything, working part-time, keeping your grades up. You're incredible." Emily laughed lightly, her voice carefree and confident. "Honestly, it's all about making it on your own. You just have to push through and not rely on anyone too much." Her words echoed in my mind. Not rely on anyone? It felt like everything I had done, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the endless support, had vanished. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I stood and approached her. When she finally turned to me, her smile faltered. "Mom," she said, polite but distant. "I just wanted to say how proud I am of you," I said, holding out the bouquet. "You've worked so hard, and you deserve this." She took it without enthusiasm, placing it on a table as if it meant nothing. "Maybe we could take a picture together?" I asked hopefully. "Maybe later," she replied impatiently. "It's just really busy. It's my day." Her words stung, but I smiled and nodded. "Of course, I understand." As I walked away, her laughter with her friends washed over me, making me feel smaller and more invisible. The ache in my chest grew unbearable, and I quietly left the courtyard. No one noticed. The drive home was silent, the bouquet lying on the back seat, its colors dull under the dim light of the setting sun. My knuckles whitened as I gripped the steering wheel, replaying the events of the day. Her laughter, the photos, her dismissive words. "Don't cry," I whispered to myself. "Not yet." By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun was gone, leaving long shadows across the yard. I sat in the car for a moment, staring at the darkened house. The bouquet remained where I had left it, much like how I felt all day, untouched and forgotten. I considered bringing it inside, placing it in a vase. But the thought felt hollow. Instead, I left it there, shutting the door with a quiet click. Inside, the silence pressed down on me. I sank into the couch as the weight of the day washed over me. My chest heaved as I fought back tears. But they came anyway, silent and heavy with disappointment. "She's happy," I whispered, trying to console myself. "She's happy, and that's all that matters." But no matter how many times I said it, the ache in my heart refused to fade. Let me tell you the whole story, but first, take a moment and hit the subscribe button. It will really help me a lot. And also comment you, city of residence I want to know from where you are listening to me. So, the memories came unbidden as I sat in the dark. I saw myself in the diner, the smell of coffee and greasy food thick in the air. My uniform was wrinkled, my feet aching from hours of work. The clock read 11:43 p.m., and I still had tables to serve before I could clock out. Exhaustion weighed on me, but every dollar I earned went into the college fund I had started for Emily. I opened the account when she was just a baby, depositing whatever I could spare. Pennies, dollars, anything. Over the years, it grew slowly, each deposit a small victory, a step closer to her future. One more shift, I'd tell myself. She's worth it. I remembered the nights spent over the sewing machine, stitching Emily's prom dress by hand. She had shown me a picture of an elegant dress she wanted, far beyond what I could afford. "I'll figure something out," I had promised her. For weeks I worked late into the night, piecing together fabric I bought on sale. Her eyes sparkled when she tried it on for the first time. "It's perfect, Mom," she said, twirling in front of the mirror. "You're amazing." In that moment, every sleepless night, every skipped meal, felt worth it. But now, sitting in the silence of the house, those memories felt heavy. I had poured so much of myself into her life, believing it would mean something. But now, I wasn't so sure. I spent 2 weeks stitching together the fabric I had bought on sale, my fingers sore and eyes tired. But it was worth it to see Emily's face light up when she tried on her prom dress. "It's perfect, Mom." She twirled in front of the mirror. I smiled, brushing away a tear, feeling all my sacrifices validated. Yet as I shifted memories, I recalled standing in the kitchen staring at bills, electricity, water, rent, always trying to make ends meet. I learned to stretch every dollar, letting my dreams take a back seat to hers. I had once dreamed of going back to school, but when Emily came along, those dreams faded. I wanted her to have opportunities I could only imagine, so I focused solely on her success. I cheered her on at soccer games, helped with homework, and celebrated her achievements, feeling a piece of my heart soar each time she succeeded. One cold winter morning, Emily begged for a new coat. The one she had was worn and frayed. I couldn't bear to see her shivering at the bus stop, so I scraped together every spare dollar, skipping lunches and cutting back on groceries until I could afford the bright red coat she had wanted. The joy on her face when I surprised her lit up my world. "Thank you, Mommy. You're the best." Those small victories kept me going, reminding me why I sacrificed so much. But now, those memories felt heavy. I had poured so much into her life, believing it would mean something when she achieved her dreams. Instead, I felt invisible, cast aside during a day that should have been shared. Her words from the reception echoed painfully. "It's all about making it on your own. She had no idea about the sleepless nights or the dreams I had let go of. I had told myself it didn't matter if she never knew my sacrifices. But now I questioned if they meant anything if she didn't see them. Wiping tears from my cheeks, I fought against the emotions. I wanted to celebrate her accomplishments, but the ache in my heart remained. I thought of the bouquet in the car, meant to symbolize my love but now felt unappreciated. I repeated the mantra I had told myself for years. It's worth it. She's worth it. But tonight I wasn't sure I believed it. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator as I sat in the dark, my phone glowing in front of me. I hesitated before opening social media, hoping to find some joy in the photos from earlier. But as I scrolled through pictures, the ache deepened. There was Emily, laughing with friends, their arms wrapped around each other under the banner that read, Class of 2025. I swiped to the next photo, each one sinking my heart deeper. In one group shot, I spotted myself at the edge, barely visible, a detail that felt like a punch to the gut. I stared at the images, mind racing with thoughts of whether she had done this deliberately. Did she even notice my absence? I clicked on a video from the reception, my heart racing with dread. The camera panned over the courtyard, capturing laughter and celebration, before focusing on Emily. "Say cheese!" someone called, and they all grinned. My daughter's voice rang out. "I couldn't have done this without you guys. You've been my rock through everything." My stomach twisted. What about me? Had all my sacrifices meant nothing? I closed the video and scrolled further until I found a post that changed everything. It was a photo of Emily with her aunt and uncle, captioned, "Thank you to everyone who believed in me. I couldn't have done it without you." She tagged them and her friends, but not me. I stared at the screen, tears filling my eyes. This was the breaking point. All day I had tried to convince myself it didn't matter, but this felt like too much. I set the phone down and struggled with tears that threatened to spill over, the silence of the house pressing down on me. I thought of the sacrifices I had made, wondering if it had all meant something in the end. I sat in darkness, questioning my worth as I whispered, "It's worth it." But tonight I wasn't sure. I let out a shaky breath, feeling lost. After a long pause, I decided to reclaim my life. I stood and walked to the kitchen, pouring myself a cup of tea, the warmth grounding me. As I sipped, I whispered to myself, "It's time." Later, I approached my desk, previously used for bills and letters, now ready for a different purpose. I flipped through the paperwork for the college fund account, memories flooding back of the first deposit I made when Emily was born, feeling hopeful about her future. Each deposit was a testament to my love and dedication, but now those memories felt tainted. I recalled her words from graduation. "It's all about making it on your own." A painful irony. I realized she had erased me from her story. With a deep breath, I began gathering the paperwork to withdraw the funds, knowing this was not about revenge, but reclaiming my worth. The process was straightforward, almost mechanical. Fill out the withdrawal request form, sign the necessary documents, and provide identification. But every step felt heavy, like I was unwrapping years of love and sacrifice and placing it back in my own hands. My mind wandered as I worked, memories of Emily's childhood flooding my thoughts. I remembered the nights I had stayed up late, helping her with homework, the mornings I had packed her lunches with little notes tucked inside, the days I had cheered her on at soccer games despite being exhausted from work. I remembered the way her face had lit up when I surprised her with the red winter coat in 3rd grade, how she had hugged me tightly and called me the best. I had done everything I could to make her feel loved and supported, to show her that she mattered more than anything else in the world. But somewhere along the way, I had lost myself in the process. The realization hit me like a wave, washing over me with a mix of sadness and clarity. I had spent so much of my life giving to others, putting their needs above my own, that I had forgotten how to value myself. This wasn't just about the college fund. This was about taking back a piece of myself that I had lost, about drawing a line and saying, I matter too. The next morning I drove to the bank with the completed paperwork in hand. The teller greeted me with a polite smile as I slid the documents across the counter. I'd like to close this account, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil in my chest. The teller nodded and began processing the request, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. I watched as she worked, my hands resting on the counter, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of control. This decision was mine, and no one else's. When the teller handed me the check, I stared at it for a moment, the weight of it heavy in my hands. This check represented years of sacrifice, of hard work, of love. But now, it also represented something else, my choice to reclaim my worth. That evening, I sat at the same desk where I had started this journey and began writing a letter to Emily. The words came slowly at first, hesitant and unsure, but as I wrote, they began to flow with a quiet strength. I told her how proud I was of her accomplishments, how much I loved her, and how much she meant to me. But I also told her about the sacrifices I had made, the dreams I had let go of, and the pain of feeling invisible in her life. I explained that this decision wasn't made out of anger or spite, but out of a need to honor myself and what I had given. I hope you understand one day, I wrote, my pen pausing for a moment as I considered my next words. This isn't about punishing you. This is about finding myself again. I love you, and I always will. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into an envelope, leaving it on her bed where I knew she would find it. As I stood in her room, I looked around at the remnants of her childhood, the posters on the walls, the stuffed animals on the shelves, the photos of her friends on the dresser. It was a bittersweet moment, filled with both love and heartbreak. I whispered a quiet goodbye to the little girl I had raised, the one who had once looked at me like I was her whole world. And as I walked out of the room, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had done something for myself, something that honored my own worth. This wasn't the end of the story, I told myself. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would finally learn to put myself first. It didn't take long for Emily to notice. I had expected as much, but even so, the moment her panicked calls and texts began flooding my phone, the knot in my stomach tightened. The first call came late in the afternoon, her name lighting up my screen. I stared at the phone for a moment, my heart pounding, but I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. She called again and again, and when it became clear that I wasn't going to pick up, the text started. Mom, something's wrong with the college fund. Did you withdraw the money? I read the message silently, my thumb hovering over the screen. Before I could decide what to say, another message came through. Mom, why aren't you answering? What's going on? Her tone shifted quickly from confusion to anger, the texts growing more frantic with each passing minute. How could you do this to me? She wrote. I need that money for school. This isn't a joke, Mom. Answer me. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter and took a deep breath, my hands gripping the edge of the counter as I tried to steady myself. I had known this moment would come, had prepared myself for her reaction. But that didn't make it any easier. The knot in my stomach tightened as the phone buzzed again and again, her messages piling up in a torrent of panic, anger, and confusion. I picked up the phone and scrolled through her messages, my chest tightening with every word. Why would you do this? I thought you wanted me to succeed. Do you even care about me? Her words stung, each one cutting deeper than the last. But I forced myself to stay calm. This wasn't about her anger or her accusations. This was about me standing firm in my decision, about reclaiming my worth and setting boundaries for the first time in years. I waited until the buzzing stopped, until the stream of messages slowed to a trickle, before I finally picked up the phone and began typing my response. Emily, I wrote, my fingers trembling slightly as I typed. I know you're upset, and I understand why, but I need you to know that this decision wasn't made lightly. I love you, and I'm proud of everything you've accomplished, but I can't keep giving and giving without being seen or valued. You made it clear that you didn't need me. This isn't about punishment. This is about me finding my own worth. I hesitated for a moment before hitting send, my chest tightening as I imagined her reaction. The response came almost immediately. What are you talking about? Of course I need you. You're my mom. I sighed, the weight of her words pressing down on me. If only it were that simple, I thought. If only her words could erase the years of feeling invisible, of being taken for granted, of giving everything I had without so much as a thank you. But they couldn't, and I couldn't go back to the way things were. I typed another message, my resolve firm. Emily, I've spent years sacrificing for you, putting your needs above my own. I did it because I love you, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. But love isn't about erasing yourself for someone else. It's about balance, about mutual respect. I need you to understand that. Her response came quickly, filled with anger and disbelief. So you're just going to ruin my future because you feel unappreciated? Do you even hear yourself? This isn't fair, Mom. You're being selfish. The word selfish hit me like a slap in the face, but I refused to let it shake me. For years I had put her first, had given everything I had to ensure her success. If reclaiming even a small piece of myself made me selfish, then so be it. I typed my response carefully, my hands steady despite the ache in my chest. This isn't about ruining your future, Emily. You're strong, capable, and resourceful. I know you'll find a way to overcome this, just like I've had to overcome so many challenges in my life. You may not understand my decision now, but I hope one day you will. The phone buzzed again, her messages growing more frantic and emotional. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I thought you cared about me. I thought I mattered to you. I closed my eyes, her words cutting deep. But I refused to let them sway me. This wasn't about not caring. This wasn't about revenge or punishment. This was about drawing a line, about saying, enough. I placed the phone face down on the counter and walked away, the sound of its buzzing fading into the background as I made my way to the living room. I sank into the couch, my hands resting in my lap as I stared at the wall in front of me. My chest felt heavy, my heart aching with the weight of her words. But I knew I had made the right decision. For the first time in years, I was choosing myself. The phone buzzed again, its persistent hum a reminder of the storm I had unleashed. I picked it up and read her latest message, a mix of anger, confusion, and desperation. I don't understand, Mom. Why are you doing this? What did I do wrong? Tears welled up in my eyes as I typed my response, my hands trembling slightly. You didn't do anything wrong, Emily. You're not a bad person, and I don't want you to think that this is your fault. But I need you to understand that I'm a person too, with my own needs and feelings. I can't keep giving without anything in return. I love you, but I need to love myself too. I hit send and set the phone down, my chest heaving as I took a deep breath. The silence that followed was deafening, the weight of my words hanging heavy in the air. I knew this wasn't the end of the conversation, that there would be more phone calls, more texts, more accusations. But for now, I allowed myself a moment of peace, a moment to breathe and remind myself why I had made this decision. This wasn't about anger or revenge. This was about reclaiming my worth, about finding my voice and standing up for myself. And as much as it hurt, I knew it was the right thing to do. The house, once filled with the echoes of Emily's laughter and the busyness of everyday life, had become quieter in the weeks following our confrontation. But for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel oppressive. It felt freeing, like the calm after a storm. I sat at the same desk where I had signed the paperwork to withdraw the college fund. But this time, it wasn't burdened with bills or reminders of sacrifices made. Instead, it held a blank notebook and a pen, waiting for me to fill its pages. I had decided that the money, which had once symbolized years of sacrifice for someone else's dreams, would now be used to nurture my own. It wasn't an easy decision to make. Guilt lingered, an unshakable shadow whispering that I was abandoning my role as a mother. But I reminded myself that motherhood didn't mean erasing myself entirely. It had taken me years to realize that loving Emily didn't have to come at the cost of loving myself. With that thought, I began making plans. Not for her, but for me. The idea of going back to school had always been a distant dream, one that I had buried beneath the weight of responsibilities and financial constraints. But now, with the funds I had reclaimed, it no longer felt impossible. I spent hours researching programs, comparing options, and imagining myself sitting in a classroom, a notebook open in front of me, surrounded by others eager to learn. The thought filled me with a nervous excitement, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. I enrolled in a course on small business management, something practical, yet deeply personal. It was a step toward independence, a way to build something of my own. The first day of class was daunting, but as I walked into the room and took my seat, I felt a spark of pride. I was no longer just someone's mother, someone's caretaker. I was a student, a learner, a woman reclaiming her life. The weeks turned into months, and slowly, I began to rediscover parts of myself I had long forgotten. I started waking up earlier not out of necessity, but because I wanted to. Mornings became sacred, a time for reflection and quiet joy. I would sit by the window with a cup of tea, watching the sunrise and writing in my journal. The words came, easily, pouring out of me like a flood as I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. I wrote about the sacrifices I had made, the love I had poured into Emily, and the pain of feeling invisible. But I also wrote about the joy of rediscovery, the thrill of learning, and the quiet peace that came with finally choosing myself. One entry stood out among the rest, a letter I had written to Emily but never sent. "Dear Emily," it began, "I want you to know that I love you more than words can ever express. Everything I did out of love for you. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself. I forgot that I was more than just your mother. I was a person with dreams and desires, with a life of my own. Taking back the college fund wasn't about punishing you. It was about finding myself again. I hope one day you'll understand." As I wrote the words, tears streamed down my face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of letting go. I folded the letter and tucked it into the back of my journal, unsure if I would ever give it to her, but finding comfort in having written it. Beyond school, I began to explore the world in ways I never had before. I used some of the money to travel, visiting places I had only ever seen in magazines or on TV. I walked along the cobblestone streets of small European towns, tasted foods I couldn't even pronounce, and stood in awe of landscapes that took my breath away. For the first time, I felt truly alive, unburdened by the weight of responsibility and regret. Each trip was a reminder of the world's vastness and my place within it, a small but vital piece of something much larger. Along the way, I met people who inspired me, fellow travelers, kind strangers, and classmates who shared their own stories of struggle and triumph. Their words and experiences became a source of strength, a reminder that it was never too late to start over, to rebuild, to thrive. Slowly, but surely my confidence grew. I began to carry myself differently, standing taller and speaking with a newfound certainty. I laughed more, smiled more, and allowed myself to embrace the joy that had once felt so distant. Even the small, everyday moments, sipping coffee at a cafe, browsing a bookstore, or walking through a park, felt like gifts, reminders of how far I had come. My journal became a constant companion, its pages filled with reflections on motherhood, self-worth, and the journey of letting go. Motherhood, I wrote one evening, is the greatest gift I've ever been given, but it's also the hardest. It requires so much. Love, sacrifice, patience. But it doesn't require self-erasure. I see that now. I see that being a mother doesn't mean giving up who I am. It means finding a way to balance love for my child with love for myself. Those words became a mantra, a guiding principle as I navigated this new chapter of my life. I still thought about Emily every day. I wondered how she was doing, whether she had found a solution to the challenges she was facing, whether she thought of me with anger or understanding. But I resisted the urge to reach out, giving her the space to process and grow in her own time. I knew that healing for both of us would take time, and I knew that the best thing I could do for her and for myself was to continue walking my own path, showing her through my actions that it was possible to rebuild, to thrive, to find joy, even after heartbreak. One evening, as I sat by the window watching the sunset, I wrote a final entry in my journal. Letting go is the hardest thing I've ever done, I wrote, but it's also the most necessary. I've spent so much of my life holding on to Emily, to the idea of who I thought I needed to be, to the fear of what it would mean to put myself first. But now, I see that letting go isn't about giving up. It's about making space for something new. It's about finding myself again, and for the first time in a long time, I feel free. I closed the journal and set it aside, a sense of peace settling over me. The journey wasn't over, not by a long shot, but I had taken the first steps, and that was enough. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. It was a quiet afternoon when I heard the familiar chime of my phone, alerting me to a new message. I had grown used to the silence between Emily and me, the weeks of no contact, stretching into months. I told myself that this space was necessary, that it was giving both of us the time we needed to process everything that had happened. But as my phone buzzed on the table, a part of me hesitated, unsure if I was ready for what her message would say. Slowly, I picked up the phone and unlocked it, my breath catching when I saw her name on the screen. "Hi, Mom," the message began. "I know it's been a while, but I was wondering if we could talk." My hands trembled slightly as I stared at the words, a mix of emotions swelling in my chest. There was no anger in her message, no accusations or demands. Just a quiet request, a vulnerability in her tone that I hadn't heard in years. I took a deep breath and typed back, "Of course. Let me know when you're free." The reply came, quickly. "Can I come over tonight?" And just like that, the conversation was set. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast the house in a warm glow, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find Emily standing there, her face pale and her eyes rimmed red, as though she had been crying. She looked smaller, somehow, not the confident, self-assured young woman I had seen at her graduation, but someone who was carrying a heaviness she didn't know how to bear. "Hi, Mom," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Hi, sweetheart," I replied, stepping aside to let her in. She hesitated for a moment before crossing the threshold, her arms hugging her body as though she were trying to shield herself from the weight of the conversation to come. We sat down in the living room, the silence between us heavy but not hostile. I waited for her to speak, giving her the space to find her words. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she looked up at me, tears spilling over her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry, Mom." The words hit me like a wave, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond, she continued, her words rushing out in a torrent of emotion. "I didn't realize. I didn't see everything you did for me. I thought I could handle everything on my own, that I didn't need anyone. But I was wrong. I was so wrong." Her shoulders shook as she sobbed, and I felt my own tears welling up as I watched her. I wanted to reach out, to wrap my arms around her, and tell her that everything was okay. But I held back. This moment wasn't just about soothing her pain. It was about honesty, about confronting the wounds we had both carried for so long. "What happened?" I asked gently, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside me. She wiped her eyes and took a shaky breath. "The scholarship fell through," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could make up the difference with a part-time job, but it wasn't enough. And then my friends, they started drifting away. I guess I wasn't as fun to be around when I was struggling. She paused, her hands twisting in her lap. "I've been feeling so lost, Mom, and all I could think about was you. How you always found a way, no matter how hard things got. And I realized I took you for granted. I never thanked you for everything you did for me. I just assumed you'd always be there." Her words hung in the air, raw and unfiltered, and I felt my heart ache with both love and pain. I took a deep breath, my hands clasped tightly together as I searched for the right words. "Emily," I began, my voice soft but firm. "I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're being honest with me. But I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the money or the sacrifices I made. This is about respect. Love isn't about unconditional sacrifice. It's about balance. It's about seeing each other, valuing each other, and treating each other with respect." She nodded, her tears falling freely now. "I know," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I hurt you, Mom. I didn't mean to, but I see now how much I took from you without giving anything back. I was selfish, and I'm so sorry." Her words broke something inside me, a dam that had been holding back years of pent-up emotion. The tears I had tried to suppress spilled over, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself feel everything. The pain, the anger, the love, and the hope. "It hurt, Emily," I admitted, my voice shaking. It hurt to feel invisible, to feel like everything I did didn't matter. But I also know that I wasn't perfect. I didn't always know how to communicate what I needed or how I felt. I let myself get lost in being your mother, and I didn't leave room for you to see me as anything else. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared pain filling the room. Then, slowly, she reached out and took my hand in hers. "I want to do better," she said, her voice steady despite the tears. "I want to rebuild our relationship, Mom. I don't want to take you for granted anymore." Her words were sincere, and I felt a flicker of hope ignite in my chest. But I also knew that rebuilding trust would take time. "I want that too," I said, squeezing her hand gently. "But it's going to take work, Emily, for both of us. We need to learn how to communicate, how to respect each other, and how to find a balance that works for both of us." She nodded, her grip on my hand tightening. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she said. "I just want you to know how much I love you." I smiled through my tears, the warmth of her words washing over me. "I love you too, Emily. I always have, and I always will." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting the room in a soft, golden light, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. This wasn't the end of our journey. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one built on honesty, respect, and mutual understanding. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future, knowing that we were finally finding our way back to each other. The sun was shining brightly as I walked through the park, its warm rays wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. The sound of laughter filled the air, children playing on the swings and couples strolling hand in hand. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass, and felt a sense of calm wash over me. It was a beautiful day, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. As I strolled along the winding path, I caught sight of my reflection in a nearby pond. I stopped for a moment, looking at the woman standing there, smiling genuinely, her eyes sparkling with a newfound confidence. I hardly recognized her. Gone was the woman weighed down by guilt and self-doubt. Instead, I saw someone who had finally begun to reclaim her worth, someone who had learned the value of self-love and respect. My mind drifted back to the journey that had brought me here. The sacrifices, the pain, the moments of heartbreak and clarity. I thought of Emily and the way our relationship had begun to shift, the way we were learning to communicate and rebuild. I felt grateful for the space we had given each other, and for the growth that had come from it. And as I continued walking, I realized that sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the chance to be seen, even if you have to do it alone. Those words echoed in my mind, a gentle reminder of the journey I had taken. I had spent so many years feeling invisible, pouring myself into someone else's dreams while neglecting my own. But now, I was learning to live for myself, to embrace my own dreams and desires. I was finally allowing myself to be seen, to be heard, and to know my own worth. As I walked, I felt a sense of empowerment swell within me, a quiet strength that came from knowing I had chosen this path. I had taken back not only the college fund, but also my life, my dreams, and my identity. I was no longer just a mother. I was a woman with hopes, aspirations, and the courage to pursue them. The park began to fill with the colors of sunset, hues of orange and pink painting the sky above. I paused to take it all in, the beauty surrounding me reflecting the beauty I was beginning to feel within. In that moment, I knew that this was just the beginning. There would still be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them. I was ready to embrace my journey, to share my story, and to encourage others to do the same. As I made my way to a bench overlooking the pond, I took out my phone and opened the Notes app. I began typing a message, one I hoped would resonate with others who might be feeling lost or invisible. "You matter," I wrote. "Your story matters. Share it with the world. You are worthy of love, respect, and a life filled with joy." I smiled to myself, feeling a sense of purpose wash over me as I hit save. The sun continued to set, casting a warm glow across the park, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey I had taken. The pain, the growth, the empowerment. I was ready to step into the next chapter of my life, and I knew that I wouldn't be alone. I would carry the lessons I had learned, the strength I had built, and the love I had for myself and for Emily into whatever came next. If you loved this story, subscribe to the channel and turn on notification. I know you are sweet, and you'll definitely subscribe. And share my fascinating story to your loved ones. Thanks for listening me. Really appreciate it.